All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. I don't know, we got a little bit of a hum here, so if that's the case in the recording, I apologize for that ahead of time. We'll see how that recording comes out. Let's see here. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here, on a fabulous Friday. TGIFing it. Episode 10 of, no, episode 22 of season 10, number 310 overall. Like, subscribe. We need it for the algorithm. FTINFX Media's YouTube channel. Check out Aftershocks. I just dropped episode 40 on Wednesday. Got some stuff coming up there, hopefully. So we gotta see here. We got a little logistical problem here that I gotta try to solve so I can make sense. So, anyways, let's get episode 310 rolling. Where are we gonna start with? Wow. I talked about this on Aftershocks, and this is the story in that 2026 kind of way that just keeps on giving. This whole thing with Diana Rossini, and, well, yeah, apparently people are getting all kinds of strays. You're right. This Chrissy Ford, contractor for USA Today, said some things, that I guess her employer, about Rossini, that her employer didn't think was appropriate. And so she was told her services were no longer needed. We're finding out it was Rossini's husband that sent the PI, and that's how the pictures were leaked. Go a hoe? Well, you go to act like a trick, we go treat you like a trick. Basically, when it comes down to that. I talked about this the other day, about with Vrabel basically catching no arrows other than, people kind of shaming him because he's supposed to be a good Christian man or something like that. But, whatever, when it comes to that these days, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we were talking about this on several platforms, basically, asking if Diana's cooked. And like I said, she could become a podcast star, but yeah, I do think no one will ever think she has an integrity as far as being an insider again. And, that's kind of unfortunate for her. I mean, I found her to be more informative and less annoying than someone like Mina Kimes, for example, who throws a bunch of analytics nonsense at the wall and hoping that it sticks, or there's enough simps out there that, have undesirable thoughts about her, as they do with Diana Rossini. I kid you not. We mentioned this the other day, too, and it still hasn't, don't get wrapped my head around. A coach getting lit the night before a game. So if the game goes bad, you can say the game plan was flawed because you had a hangover? Is that it, Ted? I don't think as a player, I haven't found out what kind of punishment there would have been as far as that goes. But man, oh man, oh man. Okay, what else am I cooking up here? My weekly focus on what's happening in sports media, because you always have to keep an eye on certain trends, and, that's always a reoccurring theme in this podcast for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time. NBC, possibly on the outside looking in. If they've had the Sunday night package for quite some time, but now, with this $16 billion restructuring that's going to happen when the NFL opts out of its current deals because they need more moolah. Not like they already don't got enough. But hey, in this world, the more you can make, apparently, the more you're going to try to make. In the NFL, they king when it comes to that. But yeah, I hear, Netflix, which help us if that happens, right? Netflix appears to be looking as an aggressive suitor as far as the Sunday night package concerns. Based on what I've seen from Netflix thus far, stay the F away from the NFL Sunday nights on a regular basis. You get a Christmas game or some shit like that, we cool with that. But no, no soup for you when it comes to anything else. And as far as I'm concerned, yeah, man. Or we like to say, Jaman. And did you see that shit with Mark Jones and Doris Burke last week? Doris Burke talking about the culture. You made it happen. I mean, it's one thing with Mark Jones being one of the more woke crybabies. Yeah, I've said it. I don't care. If he heard this podcast, he can block me too. But all that crap he said about, I hope I don't get killed by the police, and then you see pictures of him mugging. Yeah, I mean, just another one of these, woke sports media clowns who I won't miss. But that thing with Doris Burke, and they were all crying, it was one of the most pathetic things I've seen in the last quarter century on TV. I was just like, well, you all gotta be fucking kidding me. Pardon my language as far as that goes. We still don't have the cuss jar up yet, but we need it. Well, we could be buying drinks from everybody the way this is going. Yeah, but it just was one of those things that it was so revolting. No. And, one of our colleagues, Mike Breen, that Mike Breen, he's actually pretty pissed at the NBA right now. And why is Mike Breen pissed at the NBA, Ken? Well, it used to be back in the day, the local markets could show the first round playoff games. But the NBA and its greed and, it's bowing down to the screaming gods, basically have frozen out the local markets, which seems to be a prevailing trend when it comes to sport. So you always hear me ranting and raving about what streaming has done to the local markets in the MLS. And apparently, NBA is doing that to them, and you don't get to hear Stu Lance and Bill McDonald in the first round if you're a Laker fan. Okay. Oh, man, I always like to talk about these big stadiums, unis. I cover everything. You know how we do in the Foxhole. But have you seen this audacious project that's going to be out there in South Las Vegas? I think it's called Star Vegas. And this is basically where a potential NBA team could play, a soccer team, a Don King Hall of Fame boxing center. Oh, it's pretty audacious, all right. Yeah. And the thing about Las Vegas is I've been saying all the time here, if somebody really wants to make it happen, it will happen. All those folks that were laughing about the A's. And I know I haven't really been talking about the A's lately, which is a good thing. The negative Nelsons there have maybe piped down for a minute and they're eating a bagel or something. In this Star Vegas project, in that whole vein, before I get off the tracks, this project already has $6 billion in its coffers. So, yeah. Oh, you gotta love, that's Coachella, and all the folks are doing their thing, and lo and behold, the internet simps get their moment. As Paige Bookers and everybody's favorite, Cameron Brink, they were setting it up at Coachella. And the whole world had to see it because, they have such a big, especially Cam, social media following with all these simps just eating it up like Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Yeah, baby. Oh, man. Mm-hmm. And this is why it's open face here, folks. Not necessarily a monologue, but just kind of going through some takes before we get to the heavy hitting of the podcast. But about Britney Spears. Yeah. Doing a twerk, with all kinds of wardrobe malfunctions. And says, all right, bitches, I'm on my way to rehab. Oh, leave it to the Brit of pop. Yeah, I mean, now she'll be in rehab. We'll just have to like be on hold for all the weird shit she does on IG. And what is this shit about Katy Perry and this being that girl with somebody like Ruby Rose? I don't even know who the F Ruby Rose is, but I'm sure she's somebody somewhere on the interwebs. Katy Perry getting her freaky deaky on. Boy, I wonder how this is gonna play out. What little I've read, and I only need to read so much. It sounds pretty tawdry. All right, folks, that's Open Face. When we come back, we will get on the plane and take a look at the campuses across the country. See you in a minute. All right, boogie down, boogie down, boogie down. Cold chillin' like Kavicha Carvachkalia. Okay, it's time to get the homies and homettes together. Get ourselves an Uber. I know this time of day, Eugene traffic. Get to the Eugene airport where we boogie on through TSA, high fiving and boot stomping all along the way till we get to the tarmac where our Gulfstream G650, shimmering as it is, awaits us to get us to our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet, where we will take the high view over the campuses of America. What's going on at campus this week? Well, the first point we're going to make is, don't you find it kind of interesting that the whole 5-year plan, meaning you got 5 years to get your money and your gaming in, and then your ass needs to get the F on? How that talk evaporated pretty quickly. Now, I'm not saying it's not going away, because there's certain folks who are going to be pushing that until they're blue in the face. Although there are certain things that happened this week that make me wonder. More about that momentarily. I just find it, really interesting that, right, the president had his moment and NCAA said, well, we're going to look into this and we're going to look into that. And I know these things take time. I mean, the culture is kind of quiet about this. And, some of the folks that speak for the culture, because they claim they're all about the culture, they've been mum on this as well. It's not a hot potato because it's not rocket science. This is the way things were always done until we effing lost our minds for a few minutes. Back in 2019, 2020, when the world was falling apart. Another interesting development coming down the pipeline this week as well. Apparently, the NCAA, what did Brian Bosworth used to say, the national communist against athletes? They are proposing to make what is now week 0, week 1, and make that, basically, I don't know, why is that? Sometimes the last weekend in August or the fourth weekend in August, the official start of the season. Which is one more sign that the NFL is truly pivoting to an 18-game season. And I think that, excuse me, as we said here long before anybody else did, that these two entities needed to get their alignments together so they can maximize all the football money there is without stepping on each other's toes. So, okay. That's one dot in the nexus that gets us there to the President's Day holiday. So then, back to the whole eligibility thing. Why I say I wonder about the whole 5-year thing, because lo and behold, skibbity boo, skibbity bang, a district judge in Oklahoma has granted Owen Henneke another year. Gee, I wonder what school he went to. You know, I was in front of the whole of telling folks all you have to do is find some judge that's either Looney Tune or went to your damn school. And I was saying that a long time ago. Check the tape. And how about this Luther Davis story? Isn't this such a cautionary tale? I haven't completely unpacked it, but it's this bro who played for the Crimson Tide. He's part of like this big $25 million insurance scam where they were impersonating players, dressing up like women, and all kinds of fucked up shit. And, as I was listening to the Coach JB and Big Smitty show this morning, and I thought they made a great point, at least Coach JB did, about, this is why you don't give 17, 18, 19-year-old kids gobs of money and expect them to be sane about it and make a good portion of them, make sane decisions. And when the money runs out, you start doing stupid shit like this. Just saying, y'all. Man. Another interesting, I talked about this as well the other day, and I was talking about Ted Ginn Jr. as well. The whole driving, and that's crazy. That's getting as far as all the loot these kids have, and I kind of wonder about, Ruben Bain, the stud from Miami. He's got that. Who knows what the real story there is? At least I know I don't. And I tend to follow these things, but this whole thing still makes me go, I just wonder about what kind of impact this might have on his draft status coming up here shortly. And it's another cautionary tale with all the things that have happened. We talked about the kid Ponder from Colorado the other day. And, countless. And all the shit that's gone on at UGA and things like that. I don't know what the solution is because you're going to get a big bag. You're going to have a fat ride. But sure wish they would do something to educate these mother fudge cakes. Educate these guys about, you might not want to drive that Lambo so fast that you probably shouldn't have. And how about this, what Matt Hasselbeck was saying? He usually comes on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, around that 10 hour after Colin does what Colin was right and when Colin was wrong sort of thing. He brought up an interesting point on Monday, because he coaches high school football. And he said that, a good majority of his kids actually have agents. Can you imagine a high school friggin' kid with a mother trucking agent? Oh, I know. Our mouth is as foul. Believe me, after this segment, I'm going to go munch on the bar of soap and try to clean it up a little bit here. And it was a rough night in the Foxhole last night. Because, high school players with agents. It's kind of like that when, Cat Treats commercial where the cat's too cool for their owner. I just feel that way with high school players and their coaches trying to instruct them and be mentoring. It's like, nah, man, you got to talk to my agent before we agree to this. Okay, what else do I got? Iowa, apparently, is going to vacate wins after being found of tampering violations. And this goes back to 2020, I believe. And I don't know who it was, because I watch a lot of content. That's what helps me build out these shows. And I don't know who it was who said, okay, you vacate wins. I think it was the Korean Cosell. So effing what, right? It doesn't take away from what actually happened in the games, and it's kind of like, oh, after the fact, yeah, okay, man. Let me give myself a couple of superficial cuts. You feel better now? I mean, they're on a year of probation, but seeing that nobody gets frozen out of anything anymore, what the fuck is probation even these days? Oh, I know. I really need the bar. I need the bar of soap today. I really do, man. But yeah, it ain't like the days when probation. They did some Angola stuff on your boo boo. Oh man. Um, I mentioned the other day the whole thing with Dion and his skin getting thinner and thinner by the hour. It seems like. I mean, it's just like crying me a river already. Always talking about this disrespect. Mm. And another harbinger of things to come. Well, Cal cutting 20 people from their athletic department. And I know it's tough on Cal having to make all them East Coast trips. But damn, y'all's making some money over there in the world of college sports. And I know the cheddar ain't being spread around to everyone, but crap. It makes you wonder what else might happen in these athletic departments around the country. Time will tell, right? Sharon Moore getting 18 months for stalking. Probation, of course. No bracelets. Good for him. Sounds like this was just a whack-ball story that deserves shaming but didn't deserve the gray bar Hilton. And this one hits close to home for me. The Gauchos of the University of California of Santa Barbara are leaving my beloved Big West Conference for greener pastures, apparently, and joining the West Coast Conference, which I don't necessarily understand, because I think I guess the WCC is definitely better than the Big West, but not like leaps and bounds. The top tier teams in the Big West are pretty strong. So I'm not sure why Santa Barbara's doing this. I'm going to have to look a little bit more into it, I guess, at some point. But it's like, okay, don't let the door hit you. Don't let the door hit you in the boo-boo on the way out. How's that? All right, because I talked about the Red Hot Bruins the other day on Aftershocks 40, baseball team that's just kicking ass and nobody knows it. Kudos to Oklahoma State knocking off number 1 Oklahoma. A big win for that program as far as women's softball is concerned. Yeah. All right, folks. Let's get the plane back on the ground. Let's get back to Eagle's Nest 2, Studio B, where there's a apparent hum that I can't get rid of. And when we come back, we will do something you should probably know. See you shortly. All right then, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host Ken Harlan here, ice cold chillin' like Kavicha Karvachkaya. And you all know I just got bad props for my man Kavicha. What a difference maker he is for the Red and Blues of Paris Saint-Germain. Oh yeah, I get my see all kinds of stuff's going on here. People IMing me and sending me all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, this is one of those podcasts that's evolving as the information keeps trickling in. Okay, so it's time for one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and the Foxhole podcast. Something you should probably know. Or things that happened this past week in the wacky world of sports you might want to know or possibly even care about. Oh, I tell you, you know what? The afterglow of the Masters, and we talked about this at length in Aftershocks 40. Check out the conversation. Um, Tiger not being there, yeah, is good. But boy, is he starting to catch some slings and arrows. I was watching the Nerve podcast with Maureen Callahan earlier. And I don't know, I forget who she was talking with, but boy, they were just laying into him. And I've heard others who've known the guy about what a four-letter word he is that starts with a D and ends with a K. And it's just, you should get some hits. And it just goes back to what I was saying a couple of weeks ago. Man, why do you do this to us, Tiger? Why do you do this to yourself? And you're right, because the hounds have been wanting to come out of the ground for a long time when it comes to you. And I've always known that you were kind of a D-bag. I've known that from people that back in the Stanford days, you know, he screwed everything that moved and all that other kind of stuff and had a complete disregard for women and everybody else on the planet for that matter. And, you know, and people don't want to caddy for him, and apparently he's just a jerk. And now this whole thing about him wanting to not block any subpoenas to have his prescription, his pharmacy, all that good stuff. I'm like, yeah, bro, we know you've been doing all kinds of shenanigans as far as getting the farms, man. What a character. All right. Yeah, we're still, I don't know, we're still wallowing in the afterglow of another brilliant Masters and still trying to figure out what we think of Rory in terms of the all-time greats. And when I was watching the Nerve, got another great Tiger story out of it. What was it that Tiger would call or text Rory at like 3 or 4 in the morning to say he slept there. I'm doing this, you know, just to sort of get that gamesmanship in and be kind of an all-out weirdo. But yeah, it's kind of cool that Rory's moving up in the echelon. You have all the great golfers, and you look at them differently. And I think Scotty will be there even quicker because I think Scotty's gonna eventually get the slam, which will put him in that elite company. But hey, you go back to back Masters. Since that hadn't been done since early in the century, and that's saying something. Okay, I talked about the Live boys being busters pretty much all weekend. And then we get the news that PIF, the Saudi backed money bags and big bags of cash be coming from them. They're about to pull funding. And when you've got the deepest pockets in the world, even they look at this and go, this product is shit. This is shit to me. That's what they're basically saying. And I can't blame them from every time I've tried to watch it. I've been talking trash about Live quite a while now. And this doesn't surprise me that even the deep pocket folks are just like, no, dude, this is a sham. This is ridiculous. We're just letting these fools get fed off the hog and they don't care. This is a joke. So, you know what they say? Take the animal out in the back and do what you're going to do when it comes to Live. Man. It's going to be interesting, though, for all these folks going back to their respective tours when this thing does go kaput, how that's going to play in Peoria. My guess is it ain't going to play that well. Oh, man. Okay, let's circle around. Let's see here, I got a problem. That's what happens when you eat potato chips before doing a segment. But we were at Bristol as far as NASCAR is concerned last week, and Ty Gibbs, the grandson of my man Joseph Jackson Gibbs, 3-time Super Bowl winner, and done his thing in NASCAR as well. His grandson, his son Ty, oh, was it TJ? I can't remember what his name was, who passed away a couple of years ago. Anyways, this is like Mr. Gibbs's first win on the circuit at 131 starts. So hopefully that leads to a very prosperous career. You know, obviously, you know, I'm always give Joe Gibbs or somebody related to Joe Gibbs love. I met the man. He's an incredible dude. Just the nicest man. Totally. Boy, this F1 ether is really starting to become a buzzkill, isn't it? I mean, I know we're doing our business over there in Iran, and that's taking 3 races off the circuit. But boy, it's just being quiet, and you can only talk so much about Mad Max Verstappen not wanting to be in F1 because there ain't nothing else to talk about. Shit, we haven't even hit Indy in a couple of minutes. Kind of jumping at the bit here as far as having some motorsports news, but don't worry, it'll return eventually. I know we're gonna hit Mr. Big on here pretty soon. Mr. Stevie Biggs, my cohort from my days at the legendary Cal State Northridge, and also an A-Town legend. So yeah, we got strong ties. He's our tennis know-it-all, and I'm going to be asking him about this match that happened I think earlier in the week where Sinner takes #1 again in the world because he beats Alcaraz in Monte Carlo. I guess Alcaraz just pulled out of an event, so I'm wondering what's that going to look like as we careen towards Roland Garros. That's going to be here quicker than you can say Rod Laver. Another interesting thing to talk about, I guess. So, one, why is Casey Wasserman still in charge of LA 28? That would be the LA 28 Olympic board, or whatever you want to call it, committee, I don't know. Anyway, he's obviously got ties to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Hey, even the Epsteins can crawl into this podcast every now and then. Anyhow, yeah, there's some interesting stuff between those two, him and Ghislaine, and who knows what else. And, there were calls for him because he had to resign from, his music stuff. He walked away from that or sold it. I mean, didn't go away, right, with just a Virginia ham, from what I understand. But it is interesting he's still there, and there are a lot of folks, like I think even this week, Paralympic, I don't know how you pronounce that, gee whiz, I'm having a bad day here, but you know what I'm talking about, the other Olympics. I know, we're just cocking ourselves up here, we can't even think straight. But they came out expressing serious concern about him still being the face of not only the Olympics and their Olympics and stuff like that. And in this world of people being canceled, I am surprised that he's still standing at this moment. Okay, we got anything else cool? Sure. How about this? A 18-year-old Australian sprinter. I don't like the name, mind you, because I suffer from this, but his name apparently is Gout Gout. Yeah. And if you're a gout sufferer like I am, you're just like, what the hell with a name like that? Anyway, this kid last week, set the junior world record in 200 meters. This time was a blistering 19.67. Think about that shit, man. Think about it this way. Like, Pietro Minia held the world record for like ever in a day at 1972, and he did that at altitude. And this kid is, right at 1967. Man, that's fast. And he's just a kid. All right, what we always like to do? We always like to give a look at what's happening in the UFL, which, in my opinion, is not much. I was trying to watch that game last night. I forget who it was. It was even playing. It just so doesn't work for me. I think it is cool that Sean Taylor's younger brother is playing for the DC Defenders, and giving the wackos there something to smile about. But they had plenty to smile about. Boy, wait till I get to that part. Oh man. Anyway, I still haven't been looking into the numbers, but that's coming soon. over at boxing. I thought it was kind of cool, and I'm all for anything that makes us pay attention to boxing. You know this. But I think this whole thing with Tyson Fury, I forget who he beat, it doesn't matter, just part of the scenery. But basically calling out Anthony Joshua, just saying, man, I won't even take a fight unless your bitch ass gets in the ring. Basically you're saying, yeah, you can knock out that Paul clown, but let's really get it on and see what's up. Boxing needs yeah, that kind of trash talking, that kind of bravado. Like, so, yeah, you're a bitch. Let's go. Wow. We'll be entered down an even weirder corner. I think it's interesting because WrestleMania. I guess they do that at the Death Star, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and ticket sales have been dipping. I guess this has been a consistent trend, especially since the pandemic, and it just got me to wondering. I mean, I think it's more of a sign of competition, right, for that dollar, right? They can the amount of things you can do. And the thing is, and you were talking about tickets that are like $300, $600, and you want to be up close a hell of a lot more. Yeah, it's no shock that the only real sport is my dearly departed brother Greg used to say, the only true sport, because it ain't fixed, because it is fixed, I mean the same. and you know it. But I can see people not wanting to spend their money on that. I mean, it's not like they're going to be playing to a half packed house, and the ticket sales haven't declined to that point. And I know this is probably going to give a lot of people out there more chuckles than it needs to be, but how about our girl Megan R? Yes, indeed. Wouldn't be a fun podcast if we didn't get a chance to talk about our girl Megan R, Miss Rapino, and the equally legendary Sue Bird, who can be just as obnoxious. They are calling it quits. And my guess is that even as obnoxious as Sue is, she's just like, man, I cannot see myself going down the road with this wacko. It's hurting my brand. Oh, I was picking on Tiger earlier. Well, let's talk about one of his former loves, Miss Lindsey Vonn. All kinds of people clicking the boots because she's just everywhere doing what Lindsay does best, promoting Lindsay. And I think whoever the cat was that was on with on the nerve of the sporting said it best. Well, with the Winter Olympics, it only comes around 4 years, so she's only going to get that much. She only has so much of a window to get Lindsay time in front of everybody. And now that she's, didn't have her moment, and she may not be able to get another moment. But yeah, people were definitely doing the boot stop on Lindsey Vonn all over the place this week. And I saw that clip where she was on the Today Show talking to Lindsay Zarniak's man. What's he, Craig Melvin? And God, that other chick, the Chinese, the American girl that went over and got, that I don't know who she is, but saw her. I mean, I would say Lindsey Vonn and her, they're fighting it out for total tea of the year, if you know what I mean. I know, I was so bad, kid. Okay, on that note, we will click away from here, and when we return, we will do some Nightfall of Diamonds. Boogie down, beat down. All right, Krakow. Warsaw. Let's go. Okay. Well, I'm just sitting here. We got things in a weird order this week. Just the way I put the outline together. So we're going with a Nightfall of Diamonds in this slot. Nightfall at Diamonds means I get to do the Mirror Shatters, Dark Star Crashes kind of thing first. And boy, there's a lot of big stuff going on today. The Dead Nation, which we obviously not hitting the road, but they dropped a major bombshell by basically rolling out a streaming service. Yeah, well, they're going to be dropping new shows every week. There's already a lot of stuff up there. I guess there's probably like 500 shows. It's like $12 a month or $100 a year. I don't know what to think about this. I think there were certain folks that, right, they're probably smart, the rest of us, to have all these either cassettes, CDs, or tons of hard drives that have got Charlie Miller goodies from here to Chattanooga. I don't know about for all of us, I don't know if I'm like, oh wow, man, I've got like years of stuff I'll probably never get to, let alone being on a streaming platform that I'm kicking out another $100 for. Yeah, we're having trouble here. Yeah, at least I can get behind this. Some of the other shit that I'm seeing, like I see these Grateful Dead inspired baseball jerseys. I'm just like, oh man, can we just stop for 5 minutes in terms of like whoring the Dead brand out? I mean, yeah. This ain't the way it was. And then there's Dead Aces. Well, I didn't see this one coming. My man Aaron Magner, he's in it, of the Disco Biscuits. And it's about Don Was. But basically, it's going to be a tribute to the Wolf Brothers. Yeah. You thought if you need a cure for your sleeping troubles, this is probably going to be it. I like the Wolf Brothers, but they are a cure for insomnia. I mean, there's a snooze factory that really will knock you out to the point where you'll just go run to another country. But at least the Wolf Brothers will put you to sleep. And I'm imagining a tribute band. Woo. It'll be a deep sleep. Yeah, I know, I said it. Okay. Vegas, baby. Night one. So what did we call this? Spear 2 in 1. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I liked that the emphasis was on the visuals mostly last night. You didn't really get a lot of band shots. We know what the boys look like. We know what Mike's gonna be looking like a weirdo. Trey's gonna have a T-shirt that everybody wants. Fishman obviously is pretty obvious. Well, the cool ass Paige McConnell. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's gonna be a great weekend of streams. We're gonna have 2 more nights of fish. Plus, we're gonna have biscuits from the West Coast. So I'm always happy. I know I should give the other jam bands some more love as opposed to talking about the stuff I like. But hey, I know what I know. Oh man, I'll leave the hippie section on this one. So, Live Nation and Tickered Bastard getting hit hard for being what? A monopoly. Gee, water's wet. Sydney Sweeney gets a lot of clicks. And the question for me would be, well, okay, so yeah, they're running a monopoly. What the hell are we going to do? Are ticket prices going to come all of a sudden cheap and affordable? And we're not going to be hit with, hey, I lusted about Molly Tharrington in the 8th grade feed. No. Oh man, it's a good thing I don't have any sound effects nearby. Oh boy, man. Okay. Oh, mirror shatters. They will we'll get off the hippie bus and get to the real, not Fall of Diamonds. And unfortunately, we start off pretty somber this week. Man, 2 legends. Well, I don't know, legends, that's probably overstating it, but 2 very respected baseball players. One in Phil Garner, who started out with the A's and was one of the cogs of that great We Are Family 1979 World Series champion Pirates, right? I think guy was like 12 for 24 in the series, just cooked. Manager along the way. And then we find out today Garrett Anderson, part of that Angels team that broke Barry Bonds' heart, another beloved figure. He passed away at 53 today. So our condolences go out to their families and respective teams and fans and all that kind of stuff, man. But it's definitely a bummer in both cases. Like I said, two very beloved and respected figures as far as baseball is concerned. Okay, what else? Wow, this kind of surprised me. I knew it was going to happen, but Padres apparently they're finalizing a sell where they're going to be a little south of 4 billion. I think 3.93 to be exact. And yeah, that's going to be a record for MLB. So we got to ask, since they always try to be like us, because I'm a Dodger fan. So what would happen if the Dodgers were on the block? How much would they go for if the Padres got 4 billion? You tell me your guess. Maybe I'll make it a quiz question on on the Spotify stuff. But FTINFX at gmail.com or call the hotline 541-525-0896. Tell me what you think the price tag would be for the Dodgers, seeing that the Padres just went or are about to go for 3.93 billion. I know. And we just throw billion around like it ain't about a thing. Remember it used to mean something? Okay. Speaking of the Dodgers, I mean, one thing, the people say, their revenue stream is so robust. What did they spend like $515 million to win the title last year, I guess is what they came up with. But folks say that they could actually spend more if need to, just because their revenue stream is so freaking robust. Well, it might as well be, because I just saw that if you want to go to the beloved Dodger Stadium at Elysian Parkway, it's going to cost your ass $50 to $80 to park. So that means, like the lady in Levy Spring, Mrs. LeBlanc Hartman says, well, my ass be taking the tram or the bus, and I'll take that walk to get into the stadium before I pay $50 to $80 for parking. And we had the Mets come to Dodger Stadium this week for a big series, and man, I talked about aftershocks. What Mr. Cohen is dealing with this moribund team. Oh man, I'm sure it must. If you're a lackey in his organization, yeah, you're not having fun right now because that's not a happy man to be around, I would guess. And then we find out there's been a rash of illegal drone activity around Coors Field. We gotta ask, given how that team has been in recent years, why would you risk getting fined or whatever other sanctions they can levy upon you to fly around Coors to watch that team? As they say, wonders never cease, right? Okay, let's hop on the Zamboni to take a ride around the ice rink of life. What do we got over in NHL land that we can talk about? Well, Ovi and the Kid hooking up and people asking, is this the last dance for these two iconic figures of this NHL era? And right now, Ovi's kind of hinting like, man, I'm kind of having fun. I may want to put that scoring record completely out of reach. I might stay around for another year or two. What do we say to that? We cool with it. Right? I mean, the focus isn't on him. Like, that's what I, tried to emphasize the other day. It's not like we're trying to push LeBron, KD, and Steph off the stage. It's just, hey, let's just shift the focus around a little bit. New blood, as they call it. And, it's like, speaking of fish in that vein, What is it? Maybe so, maybe not. Good for you, Ovi. And how about this? The legendary Jonathan Quick, who seems like he's been around playing hockey since I was in college, but it's not cool. Well, maybe he was, thinking about it, because I was in grad school forever. But yes, part of those Kings teams that won. I think I still have the T-shirt buried in my drawer somewhere. I bust up with every now and then when I'm going to flex for the Kings. But yeah, what a career he's had. I mean, I think he's like 40, 41. So, hey, Jonathan, enjoy your retirement. I'm sure it's going to be fun hanging out with your lady, driving around in your bad hoopty, smiling like a villain. This is what we like. All right. When we return, we will talk about the beautiful game life and what a tumultuous week it was on the pitch. See you shortly. I'm telling you, we're just falling apart here today. It's been a rough one. Hold on. I may have to take a pause here and go get a drink of water or something, but I think we'll be all right. We got the first game of the elimination in the playing round. We'll get to that momentarily. We'll talk some basketball all over the place here later in the podcast. But meanwhile, let's get to the pitch. Definitely recapped what happened in UEFA and CONCACAF earlier in the week on Aftershocks. But now let's look at the aftermath. It's interesting because you're not really hearing a lot from Liverpool. Obviously with Hugo Ateki blowing out his Achilles, that's kind of the big story there. I mean, Barcelona, you're not hearing a lot of flack either. However, over in Madrid, home of Los Blancos, that football club known as Real Madrid, the standard, Oh my days, this PSG ain't that guy. He's a funny kid. Even though I could do without some of the anti-Semitic stuff that comes across in his live streams, but whatever. I'm there for the content. We're all just giggling because watching these guys from Madrid just come on their respective podcast or platforms, and I mean, they are actually, I don't know, what are they, combusting right before my very eyes? That we can live in a world where Madrid can go 2 years and not win a freaking trophy. Oh, there's this one brother. He's probably been on 10 or 12 podcasts. The guy basically says the same thing, but just watching him, I don't know. He's almost about to convulse. He's so aghast at where Real Madrid is. I addressed this the other day, the whole thing with the slings that Kylian Mbappe is getting, and I guess he came out today. He's like, "We will do this, and we're gonna do that. We know that's not the standard." I'm like, "Bitch, didn't you say this shit in Paris when you didn't bring it home all the time? But at least when you were in Paris, we won the damn league, even if it is a farmers league to the rest of y'all. But we won the league and won trophies. What you doing in La Liga right now? A big goose egg." And as I said the other day, I'm not losing any sleep over that one. I mean, he's got a World Cup, so let's not act like the guy ain't got no money in his wallet, man. That's a pretty big thing to have on your resume, fair to say. The interesting thing, though, is, and I don't know all this talk about Real Madrid, because basically they need somebody that commands a lot of respect, and basically the best in the world. You're not pulling Lucho away from PSG, right? You're not pulling Pep away from City. So clearly you're looking at Jurgen Klopp, who's, I thought there was no way you'd get Kloppo to come, but the way it's sounding, you know, it is Real Madrid, and usually when Madrid wants something, they can find the way to make it happen. That he's not flatly denying, just like saying, "No, man, I'm doing my thing at Red Bull. I'm doing this, and I'm making cool ass commercials and being that guy that everybody wants to have a beer with." But it would be interesting if he returns to the sideline with Los Blancos. I might be afraid of that, to be quite honest. He says, you know, that, yeah, there's a basis that him or, you know, because I don't think PSG would let Lucho go. You know, I think PSG, he leaves PSG when he wants to leave, especially after delivering, you know, the Holy Grail last year, and they're in a good position to do it again. I think these matchups are going to be absolutely fire. Bayern and PSG, what a matchup that's going to be. Ooh, Riquez. And Arsenal and Atletico Madrid is definitely no slouch either. That, you know, right? So we're looking forward to the semis, big time. Over in CONCACAF, the big story here is obviously LAFC in Nashville City flexing for the MLS. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I mean, you know, okay. Seattle got knocked out, and so did the Galaxy. They both didn't do enough in the first leg to help their cause, but I think it's pretty cool for Nashville and LAFC. You know, both have a chance to join Seattle. I think this is a prime year. I think it'll be not so much for Nashville. I think Nashville, they're having an incredible season, but it's hard for me to really gauge when I feel that sometimes they're punching above their weight class. But for LAFC, this would be monumental, as I said the other day, in terms of their global aspirations. And so I think it'll be, if they stumble, you know, right in the next round, yeah, it'll be a colossal disappointment for their fans, and I think for MLS too. Okay. I think I mentioned the other day, you know, a little bit about the action of the weekend. Portland beating that rotated LAFC squad. Everybody's all of a sudden flexing, and I'm just like, oh, good grief. And of course, my feed has to get bombarded. You know, when we take an L with a rotated squad, go figure there. You know, that I talked about this on Aftershocks the other day with Marciano leaving Inter Miami after they drew with Red Bull New York. They're just not posting enough W's for the kind of quality, along with the great Leo Messi. Getting points, but not a lot of wins. Yeah, how about the Loons going to San Diego and getting a win over SDFC? That was kind of a shocker. Keeping an eye on the Loons. San Diego, not an easy place to go get a win. Those folks are wild. Other big story right now is the Whitecaps in the Quakes rising. So this LAFC San Jose matchup, get your popcorn ready. And I was just talking about parking at Dodger Stadium being absolutely like British Petroleum kind of stuff. I'm just going to say, bitch, please, when it comes to the New Jersey Transit Authority. Basically telling y'all, if you want to ride on our shit to get to the World Cup from the city, it going to cost you $150, which is a 775% hike of your normal fees. Bitch, please. And people ask me, oh, gee, are you excited about, aren't you going to try to go to the World Cup? And I'm like, I ain't rich. Because I would have to be rich to be able to do that. So, yeah. Okay. I spoke about the Spurs. I'll be keeping an eye on them as far as them possibly going. Because I guess Wolverhampton's about to get pushed back. Props to Coventry City, by the way, back in the EPL for the first time in a quarter century. So kudos to them for that. We'll give them some love. But for the Spurs and Wolverhampton, yeah. Okay, let's talk some U.S. men's national team. Mr. Aronson pushes back on the narrative that the United States men's national team doesn't care. Yeah, I get that. You know, there's a lot of folks who say these guys just don't. They're just not that good. Maybe he should have just did that. You know, what Lomax said. I guess it's like, you know, at one point back when the Redskins owned them. And after we beat them one time, he just came out in the locker room and just says, "I just hate to tell you guys, we're just not that good." I think in certain ways, that's what Mr. Aronson should be saying, as opposed to that we don't care. We know you care. You'd love to be able to be proud for the badge. Y'all just ain't good enough to punch on the big stage, from what we've seen. And those are just facts, from what the data shows us. Okay. United States women in a three-leg affair with Japan, friendlies obviously. Win the first one, you know, with Lindsay Heaps getting into the action. But they lost 1-0 on Tuesday. Wonder how Emma Hayes responds. I think it's tonight when they play the third game, the rubber match. And another move that probably makes a lot of sense, even though it'll piss certain people off, because why do we have to always dovetail to the global calendar, especially the Europeans? But the NWSL is probably gonna follow MLS's lead in adapting the global calendar. So while I will miss that window of the year where there's not a lot going on and we get to watch soccer, it probably makes sense to be like everybody else and be on the global calendar as opposed to that strange thing the Americans do. Then, speaking of Leo Messi, get this guy buying a fifth-tier club. Kind of like how, like, I don't know if Mbappe owns what is it, SM Con, or he has a big stake in it, but I think Messi's going to be, you know, Al Davis, right? The managing general partner. So let's see what happens with this particular squad. They're fifth tier right now in Spain. Okay, you know me, speaking of, and these guys are always coupled together. You know me, I can't help it with my Neymar fascination. Not obsession, but fascination. So he splashes cold water on any rumors that he's coming to the MLS to be part of FC Cincinnati. He says, "Hey, I'm chill with Santos. I'm just going to play out the string." I mean, we'll see with Meg, because he's got to stay on the pitch for one, but it would have been nice to see what they could have done in the MLS, but apparently that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Okay. I think that is going around the pitch. I think we got it. When we come back, we will talk the association. And you know me, like every other content creator that's doing sports right now, gotta speak a little about them queens of the court. See you momentarily. Okay. Still having all kinds of issues over here today, and we apologize for that. And we definitely promise to have those worked out here soon as we slowly pivot away to a new platform as far as all of our broadcast needs and testing it out all week. And I'm actually pretty excited. As for the video, I'm thinking at some point this will be audio and video as well, so I'm very excited about that. We may or may not do SJ Gets Down. I'm still on the fence as far as that's concerned. I mean, yeah, that doesn't ever happen. I mean, if it does, it's going to be amazing as far as the video goes there. But way things are going along those lines, I just don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, where are we going now? We're going to talk some NBA. We got it on the TV, but we're going to start with another summer. It's a tough week. If you follow international basketball, you know, like IBF and the Olympics and things, you remember the legendary The Touch, Oscar Smith. He passed away at 68. I guess he'd been fighting a brain tumor for the last 15 years or so. Mercurial figure in global basketball, so our condolences go out to his family and fans for sure. Okay, let's get funky. He was ranting and raving in the last Aftershocks. You saw it, and probably didn't, and y'all need to like and subscribe to our FTINFX Media's YouTube channel so you can see all the great content, because I'm having a lot of fun with that, and it's going to get a lot better. I went on a rant about the NBA and the 65 game threshold and what Barkley especially had to say. And lo and behold, leave it to the NBA to find a way to backtrack. Oh, well, the appeals for Mr. Cunningham and obviously Luka, yeah, okay, we'll let you be in the MVP. Translation, if yeah, we're going to institute something, follow through, or why the F do it all? Do it at all, I mean to say. Really? Okay, and this is why nobody takes your league that serious, Mr. Silver. Am I lying? Okay. I went up on Doc Rivers the other day, you know, the whole Doc Rivers and Doc Roberts analogy thing. I still think it's funny, though. I mean, yeah, a lot of stuff has gone on since the last couple of days, you know, right? And I mentioned this the other day, too, of the NBA claiming, you know, that they doubled the viewership, and one person said that one publication said that their numbers increased 86%. When you hear stuff like that, you know they be cooking the books, because there ain't no way in anybody's lifetime the NBA viewership increased 86%. That I can assure you. No. Homie ain't believing that. So I'm watching the play-in right now, and we're at the point now where these are the final elimination games, and it's been an interesting week for Orlando, hasn't it? I mean, they got into this position because they blew a lead to this rotated Boston squad, which was a horrible fucking tumble for them. They ended up being in the eighth when all the dust cleared. And so they start it right, and so it was kind of interesting when they played the Sixers, and you know the Sixers going to Sixers, and I knew the Sixers would win that game. And now they are beating the crap out of the Hornets, who beat Miami in that controversial game where Melo Ball basically took out Bam, and they ended up winning the game in overtime. Didn't he have like the game winner or something like that? So. But it ain't looking good right now because Orlando, which is having a weird week, they be up by 21. But as they say, it's the end of the first quarter. We know no 20-point lead is ever safe in the association. Yeah. You know, the Warriors knock out the Clippers. Chris Paul getting the last laugh. Chef Curry and Draymond showing the old heads. They got one last stand in them, which we kind of predicted. And I had a lot to say about Ballmer's folly the other day, so I'll spare the Clippers today and focus more about the Warriors and their quest to beat the Suns, who are in this position because the Blazers rose up and just said, "Sit down, bitches. It's our time." What's the kid that got in the trade who dropped 41, you know, basically his coming out party. So good for the Blazers, good for the fans up here in the Northwest and Rip City, y'all. So yeah. So right till later on, we got the Suns and the Warriors. I got the Warriors all the way. So let's real quick here, just take a quick look at what the Foxhole thinks about the first round. Well, the Thunder, they put the Suns of the Warriors. They're getting that ass, okay? Lakers and Rockets, that looks to be the Lakers, but I tell you what, if whatever shenanigans Luka pulled off and get him on the court by Game 3, I like the Lakers somehow getting out of this series. I just do not think much of this Houston squad. I think this Nuggets Timberwolves. This is a tour de force series in the first round. Kind of a bummer that two, heavyweights have to meet this early. The Nugs are my dark horse. Nobody's talking about them. I think the Joker is going to may add to his legacy this year. They get past the Timberwolves. Too bad we won't be seeing Ant-Man that long. Or the Joker. That's what sucks about this pairing right here. Spurs and Blazers. It's been the Blazers are a great story. But if they beat San Antonio, yeah, I might actually have a swig or two of whiskey, and I haven't done that since Kobe was still good. On the other side of the equation, I don't know. I'm with people where it's probably not going to happen, but I see the Magic or the Hornets, either one, giving the Pistons all they can handle. The Pistons eventually win. That's what I'm thinking right now. Cavaliers, Raptors, I'll take the Cavs, but it wouldn't shock me if the Cavs fumble this one away, and why we think they're the Peyton Mannings of the NBA. But like I said, at least Peyton got some jewelry. These guys, this cast of Cavaliers, Knicks, Hawks. If the Knicks lose this, I think Spike Lee, we will be checking the ER as far as that one goes. And I think this, harken this NBA history here for y'all. I mean, anytime the 76ers and Celtics get together, it's always Titanic. But this ain't like the days of old. And the Celtics, they take these guys out pretty quickly. That's what the Foxhole thinks about the NBA playoffs. Coming up, starting tomorrow. We're so excited. That was kind of interesting. ESPN.com's piece about the end of the Ja Morant era in Memphis, and it's just kind of the rise and fall of that guy. It's kind of interesting because you've had stories in the past of all these guys who were like kind of legends, coming out of college or the playground, and it somehow didn't work out. And it's kind of interesting to kind of see that happen here in this modern 2020s era. And this guy is one of those, that came in as a very bright star, right? Now you got to have the Hubble telescope to find the cat, and that's kind of a sad tale as far as the promise that was there, right? It's crazy. And speaking of Kobe, isn't it crazy that it's like 10 years has passed since Mamba out? When he dropped that, 60 in his final game, which, I didn't have a lot of great things to say, and I know I kind of pissed off the Kobe hive, right? But hey, I thought that was his, okay. Bam's 83 is about as shameless as it gets, and doesn't really even deserve to ever be mentioned. And we'll give the Mamba a pass for all the great things he did for the game. But that was pretty shameless, for somebody who kind of prided himself for holding himself to about the highest standards. Okay. We're going a little softer today, but we'll talk a little bit about the quiz. They're all getting bags. I mean, remember what Flaujae's mom said? We're going to get that bag. We're going to get that bag. I had a lot to say about some of the shenanigans going on with the WNBA and episode 40 of Aftershocks the other day. But I think it's interesting that the Sims can rest now that Sophie got her bag and is staying in Indiana, and I think so was Aaliyah Boston. Oh, I'm telling you, man, these guys that create all this WNBA content, man, they're like pigs in slop right now with all these ladies getting the bag and all the movement. So as I said the other day, you can crumb on the WNBA all you want, and I do, because I think they're one of the most, it is the most unlikable league on the planet, with some of the most unlikable characters in all of sport. But it's that train wreck that you just can't take your eyes off of. And this is going to be another interesting journey down the road of insanity with everything that comes with that friggin' league. All right, folks, we're cooking. We'll be back with a closer look on the other side. All right, getting those island vibes like we're rolling in Kingston. Oh, I know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this whole dead streaming service. Ooh, $100 make you holla. Ooh, man. Okay, let's time to opinionate, editorialize, talk a little trash. You know that thing we do every podcast, a closer look? Boy, so this Damon Jones thing is back in the news. You know, he's one of the guys caught up in this NBA gambling thing. Apparently, he's going to enter a guilty plea. And I gotta ask, where do you think this is going to land? Is this the tip of the iceberg, as I asked a while back? Or is this where somebody falls on the sword and the whole thing goes away? And that's the weird thing in this weird era, you know, between online betting, the prediction markets. I mean, you know, we got people betting on, you know, how long is it going to take for the Strait of Hormuz to be opened again and all this kind of stuff. It's just the integrity thing, you know, and that's what makes me wonder with all the other perils that could take, you know, parts of the sports world down, because after all, this stuff is entertainment, and entertainment usually is too big to fail unless you're completely dropping the ball, as they say. I just wonder, and you know, you see this, you know, the kid from Alabama. I said earlier, you know, you get people that have agents in high school. And the ability now where there's money, and when there's money, there's people like the mob and other criminal syndicates. You don't think they're finding a way to make some cheddar, you know, off all of this? And I just have to wonder, from a integrity sport, what do they like to say in the mob movies? Is this stuff on the level? I never used to think that way. And this wasn't being naive, you know, in terms of, you know, these guys competing and, you know, the desire for glory and all that comes with it. You know, I do believe that was something at one point, but I'm not sure now. And I think people can be easily corrupted. And I see this guy, I was like, okay, you got the goods on me. I don't know what's going to happen with Chauncey and the others. But I just have to wonder, you know, what would happen if we took a fine comb underneath this stuff and all of these sports organizations, as far as what's going on in the integrity level, it would probably be a pretty frightening sight, I would think. Yeah? Well, only time will tell. I mean, I know somebody was talking the other day about Tim Donahue, how as nasty as that story is, it was like a scintilla of what's really dark. Well, we'll wait for that New York Times bestseller to come out that brings it all down. You know, kind of the way all those books that came out and all those articles about steroids, and then Congress decided, hey, we got to grab some headlines here. As Mark McGuire says, I don't want to talk about the past. Okay, so let me get back to the play-in round. And I see that Orlando's up by 24. But it is interesting this week, because you know I take a lot of content, and as I said earlier, that's how I kind of build these podcasts out. You know, just kind of reactions and takes and insights based on what the conversation is. Not the culture, the conversation. And these folks are really hating on the play-in, even though they're kind of grudgingly, like I've been saying all along, it is kind of cool. But it's interesting how folks look at it as an abomination. It's just this stupid thing to get more viewers. And I'm like, yeah, and your point is exactly why it sucks. But then you're sitting here watching the Warriors and Clippers and watching, you know, Chef Curry put on a masterful performance, and yet you still hate on it. I don't quite understand this. And I'm not going to tell you I embraced it initially. You go back and check the episodes. But I was pretty quick to see the value and that, yeah, this is something the NBA has, I think, did it right. And this is definitely a double. Solid contact. And I don't understand, as I call it, the play-in hate. And what's that guy, Skapanek? He was just sitting there, just like, oh my God, it's just, even though I'm watching it, I just find this is the stupidest thing. And I'm like, what's stupid about it? You span the playoffs, you give some teams like the Warriors, who, hell, they get past the Suns, which I'm pretty sure they will. Who the hell knows what kind of problems they can be? Right, as proud champions at one time. I don't see it against Oklahoma City, but that's why they play the game, as they say. Yeah, no, I think, there's been some great matchups. Remember the Warriors and Lakers played a few years ago? I mean, I thought it was kind of unfortunate in Miami's case, and I do think Mr. Ball should have been suspended. And I think that Mr. Silver, once again, in his product, showing what a coward he is, not only with the backtracking a little bit on the 65 threshold, but not suspending this kid because, well, it's going to be a better product. I'm like, to deter people from doing stupid shit like he did, which cost Miami a chance, and the way Charlotte's looking right now, I'm sure Bam and the boys would have been a better opposition to their in-state rivals than what we're seeing right now. But hell, there's 7 minutes left in the second quarter, so I'm not gonna go too far in that. Orlando still has plenty of time to find a way to F this thing up. But yeah, I just, kind of was really disappointed. And a lot of people were disappointed that Mr. Ball was not set down for this game. And, I go Coach Bolstra. That, bless his heart, okay? He says, hey, he didn't need to be punished more, but I know deep down inside, you lying, man. Or what is that? Kevin Hart singing that commercial? That's a lie! Oh my goodness. But yeah, it would be something, though, for all this shenanigans to go down, and Orlando, who's having a very bad week, gets that ass and actually gets into the playoffs. But like we said, this is why they play the game. All right, folks. I think that's all I've got for a closer look. We're going to do the NFL report and TMCA time and get y'all out of here and get your weekends going in the fabulous way it should on a TGIF smiley day. Be back momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole in Orlando. Even though there's an eternity left, so I just don't feel good about this. They're up by 26 with 5:51 left in the half, taking the belt to that ass. All right, let's get it on. NFL. The draft is rapidly approaching, which is kind of interesting because there's a lot of hype. But it just seems a little bit muted this go around. And I think I said that last year too. Maybe that's just, we're so saturated now. But let's start. Let's go with Philadelphia. So Howie Roseman comes out this week and just says that the criticisms of his beleaguered, embattled quarterback, Mr. Jalen Hurts, are unfair. Agree or disagree? Oh, as I've said before, guys, Super Bowl winner, close to being a 2-time Super Bowl winner, and we all know how hard that is to accomplish in this lifetime. I'm going to have to say he might be right in that regard. If he's a bitch in the clubhouse because he's got, well, I'm not going there. I'll leave that to the Whitlocks and Coach JBs. But anyways, if he's kind of a diva, so be it. I mean, I know there's quite a few other quarterbacks. They ain't got no jewelry, let alone been to the big game 2 times. All this talk about Kirk Cousins and Mr. Mendoza. My question is, do you think Fernando could actually beat Kirk out in training camp and be the starter on opening day for the Las Vegas Raiders? And because everybody has these comments about, well, I do not think he's a day one starter. We didn't think Dak was a day one starter. He turned out to be. So I do think this is going to be an interesting storyline coming into the 26th season, in spite of what Kirk Cousins thinks. We've already seen how this movie played once, Kirk. So be careful about what you say. And it's news this week, which we already kind of knew was going to happen, about the Jaguars coming to their senses and basically saying, you ain't going to be no two-way player. We're just going to concentrate on making you an all-pro quarterback, which is like, wow, you did a lot of maneuvering for this two-way generational player to only say, yeah, nobody can really do that. That's football, y'all. Then you got Kyle Juszczyk. That Kyle Juszczyk. The West Coast, part of the West Coast posse of the Bam Bam brothers. Well, he comes out this week and basically says, I don't know what Brock Purdy has to do to get respect. I said, you know what, Kyle? I'll fix it for you. It's called win a ring. And when you play for the San Francisco 49ers, at least at one time, they won rings. And they have some of the most compelling QBs to ever play the game in Joe Montana and Steve Young. So when you were walking in their shadow, you were expected to win. And so, well, Mr. Juszczyk, I get your point in terms of the frustration you have with people not giving Mr. Purdy the respect that he probably should get. But this is the team. In the organization, you have the coach. So, yeah, it's just a matter. I'll fix it for you, Kyle. He wins a ring, he'll get respect times 10. Look at Sam Darnold. How's that going? And no, he was in the building too, behind Brock Purdy. Isn't that crazy? So this is an interesting. I was looking at the other day. I was just kind of going down the futures as we get to this time of the year and we need content. And you start looking at the futures. So I was looking at the 4 teams whose futures are 5.5. That's wins, basically, over or under. I was wondering, which one has the chance of a breakout year? And this is the Jets, Arizona, the Raiders, and Miami. I said, ooh, man, what a hand you give me there. Boy. Yeah, this is a tough one. I may just have to say I'm going to take the field as far as this goes. I mean, it wouldn't be a shock because there's been lots of rags to riches stories in the NFL in recent years. But with all 4 of these teams, I'm just not feeling it at all. 2 of them have brand new young coaches, and that might be the infusion they need to actually have a great liftoff. But you know what they say? I got to believe it. I got to see it before I believe it, to comment on it, right? Yeah, I'm just going to say, yeah, I don't see any, but I wouldn't be shocked if any of them, or a couple of them, actually do have breakout years. So that seems to be the prevailing trend in the NFL. This is an interesting one. Zay Flowers, the sort of standout wideout for the Baltimore Ravens, who came to the media, I think it was yesterday, and said that John Harbaugh, who's now in Gotham, his practices, they're so intense that he believes it caused undue injuries to Ravens players. And you can imagine The content makers had a field day calling him a soft ass B. Yeah, and all this other stuff in terms of the way things are conducted. Newsflash, old school boys. You might have a point, but it ain't like that anymore. And so, yeah, I don't know what to say in terms of the whole orange slices and what are those things? The juice boxes and all that kind of stuff that's made this world a little bit softer than it used to be. And I don't know how that correlates to more injuries. But that's what Safe Flower says. So consider the source. Oh, let's go with a blast from the past. And this is a blast from the past. The legendary Jamarcus Russell in the interwebs this week. Eventually, somebody ran into him and asked him about what he thinks about people thinking he's the biggest bust of all time. He's like saying, well, these are people that won't say it to my face. If they say it to my face, I'm going to knock them on their ass. And to that, I say, you go, Jamarcus. And I say it in the same way that Kwame Brown pushes back. You might be a bust, but that doesn't mean you have to accept it. And in the Foxhole, we cool with that. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, I'm going to have so much fun with this one. Boy, the unis are better than jet fill. So a lot of teams did jersey reveals this week, but they were dwarfed by one, and you know where I'm going with this one. The Commanders, with their ballyhooed rebrand in 2022 with the uniforms that most people didn't like, although I really liked the burgundy one, and the black one was all right. They have pretty much gone full Redskins with a black alternative helmet that has a spear through the W. And this is what I tell folks that don't understand my Commanders / Redskins. This group of fans may be some of the most insufferable in the planet, especially ever since they got their beloved Redskins name taken away from them. And this week, they're getting the 3 uniforms that basically are the old Redskins uniforms with a black one, but the same stripes, and the alt helmet. And yeah, this fan base is so gassed up. I mean, who needs jet fuel? This is just one of the more psychotic things. The media personalities, the internet experts, everybody weighing and losing their minds. Well, I haven't spent money since 2022, but I guess I have to now. I hear all this kind of stuff, and I'm sitting there like, damn, I bought that Commanders jersey, and now I'm going to have to get some new swag. But the cool thing about it is, going back to the old colors, you just wear the Redskins one and say, F it, why buy another jersey since it's so similar to what they're doing now? I think the Rams and the Ravens jersey reveals, less fanfare, meh. I talked to you last week about the Cowboy Blues and Rams. I kind of was hoping the Rams would embrace that 60s, early 70s look a little bit more. And the Ravens is just, I don't know, what is this, kind of like an update of what y'all have been doing, a slight variation? Maybe I need to look at it closer. Ooh, boy, it's Friday afternoon, and I just see the trucks from the foundry have just rolled up. You know what those trucks contain? The smelliest varieties that come in complimentary, regular, and XL sizes. Who is trying to call the Foxhole? Hold on, people. Okay, I really got interrupted there. I'm not sure where I was, but I'm sure I hadn't gotten to the point of talking about, the stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties. I know I'm coughing up a storm here. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. Anyway, so stainless steel bowls of the smelliest varieties that come in regular, complimentary XL sizes. Consult the Wire, Tommy Carcady era for what that means. But these are given out every week for those whose deeds or actions during the week earn that distinction, or as we like to say, them being who they be, and often they are that. Okay, who will we start with? Well, Ted Ginn Jr., coach of the Columbus Aviators, getting hammered the night before a game and getting a DUI in the era where it's called Lyft, Uber, taxi, rideshare, bro. That's two XLs. Come on now. Come on. Now. It should be 3, but I'm being nice today because I've been cussing too much. However, it is rare that we give a 5 strip. I mean, right. A 5 strip is totally maxing out. But there's in rare cases we will give a 10 strip. You folks that have been the Grateful Dead bus, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, this is like 5 XLs. No, F this. It's 10 XLs. This is a little rare when we give out 10, where you have to give out a 15, and this almost merits it, if I think about it, but I'm going to stick with 10 XLs. To the New Jersey Transit Authority. Bitch, please. A 775% hike in your fares for the World Cup? My head's exploding on that one. The more and more I think about it. But yeah, it's definitely worth 10 XLs. I'm going to give an XL to Sergio Garcia, being just a little girl at... Sorry, no offense to little girls out there, we love you. Pouting like a little girl at Augusta, tearing up a tea box, and like I said, just being a total little bitch. Sorry, call it the way I see some. I'm gonna give... I should give him more, but the fact that he was a criminal mastermind, I'm just going to stick with 2XL for former Crimson Tide football player Luther Davis at the center of this big scandal that just came out this week. Yeah, that's a hell of a story, and I haven't unpacked it all yet, but that's worth 2XLs. Okay. This is 2 for the Hall of Shame, 2 for ESPN, 2 for Doris Burke, and 2 for the Woke Sports Media for that despicable display we saw last week. I talked about it earlier. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm gonna spare Cam this week because other things have entered the list that say, yeah. This is another 5 XLs. So yeah, we're giving some bowls out. We had the people of the Foundry really busy this week. Bogus internet sellers, people out there, whether it's selling fake gear, whatever, but mostly tickets and scamming people. You people absolutely friggin' suck. With the World Cup coming up, it's only going to intensify. Shame on y'all. I'm going to give 2 XLs. 1 for the play on Bam, and 2 for the lame interview we gave to Mr. LaMelo Ball. Yeah, that's too worthy. And lastly, not that Luther Davis is completely alone on the podium, we're going to give former Eagle Alshon Jeffrey facing some serious time in the Gray Bar Hilton for insurance fraud. Some serious thieving going on up in this bitch. Well, folks, somehow we did it. Coughing, the hum in the podcast, because it's just been that kind of a shit show day up here in the Foxhole, but these things do happen at times. Great weekend of sports that's already happening and unfurling. The playoffs start tomorrow. As always, enjoy some good food. Good vibes. Definitely the adult bevs. Good company with the people that matter, for sure. Stay safe and sane. And as always, avoid those bracelets at all times if possible, please. Till then, keep an eye on the next Aftershocks, number 41, early midweek. So you'll get a dose of this one way or the other if you're interested. Until then, keep it tight, keep it real. Always do it with a smile on your face, and we'll see you soon in the Foxhole. Peace out, y'all.